Some betrayals arrive with warning signs. Others arrive with rose petals on the floor and the sound of a woman laughing in your own bed. Isabella Moreno never saw it coming. She thought she was walking into her 5th anniversary. She was actually walking into the end of her entire life. But by the time the sun rose over Boston the next morning, the man who broke her would learn a lesson that echoed through every dark corner of the East Coast. Because when a woman with nothing left to lose sends a desperate text to the wrong number, sometimes the wrong number turns out to be exactly the right one. And sometimes the stranger on the other end of the line is the most dangerous man in the city. Isabella Moreno, 29 years old, closed her bakery an hour early that Monday evening. She had spent the entire day humming to herself as she frosted a 2-tier tiramisu cake with hand-piped roses along the edges. It was Derek's favorite. She had learned to make it from her grandmother in Naples the summer before her wedding, back when Derek used to sit on the kitchen counter and steal bites of cream off her finger and tell her she tasted like sugar. That memory had gotten her through a lot of hard nights recently. She held on to it now like a rope in a storm. Bella was a plus-size woman, and she wore her curves the way a queen wears her jewels. Her dark curls spilled loose over her shoulders. Her lips were painted a defiant berry red. Her deep plum silk dress hugged the generous slope of her hips and the full swell of her chest without apology. She had built her bakery, sugar and salt, from nothing but her grandmother's recipes and a small business loan she had spent 4 years paying back on her own. Derek used to be proud of her. He used to bring his colleagues to the shop and beam when the tables filled up. That was before he made junior vice president at Sterling Cross Capital. That was before he started coming home late, smelling like a perfume that wasn't hers, and telling her that a man in his position couldn't afford to have a wife who looked like she enjoyed her own pastries a little too much. The comments had started small. A raised eyebrow at a second helping of pasta. A joke about her portion sizes at a firm dinner that made his colleagues laugh and her cheeks burn. Then the jokes became suggestions. The suggestions became instructions. He bought her a gym membership she never asked for. He hid the dessert menu when they went out. He told her one Sunday morning in bed that she used to be so beautiful before the bakery, and did she remember how she used to look, and wouldn't it be nice to look like that again? Bella had cried in the shower that morning until the water went cold. Then she had put on her berry lipstick, gone to work, and told herself that marriage was hard and every couple went through seasons. She told herself she just had to hold on. She was holding the tiramisu cake in a white bakery box as she walked up the front steps of their Beacon Hill brownstone. She had left work early to surprise him. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say all afternoon. She was going to tell him that she loved him. She was going to tell him that she wanted to try harder. She was going to ask him if they could go to counseling. She had the name of a therapist written on a folded piece of paper tucked inside her purse. She was going to be brave tonight. She was going to fight for her marriage. She noticed the rose petals first, a trail of them, deep red, leading from the front door up the hardwood staircase. Her heart lifted for one beautiful, foolish second. He remembered. He had planned something. He had come home early too. Then she noticed the shoes by the door. Louboutins. Red-soled. Size 7.5. Her size was a 9. And she owned exactly one pair of Louboutins, and they were upstairs in her closet where she had left them. The cake box began to tremble in her hands. She recognized the shoes. They belonged to Vanessa, her best friend, her maid of honor, the woman who had held her hand at her grandmother's funeral 2 years ago, the woman who had a key to their brownstone because Bella had trusted her with it. Bella climbed the stairs slowly. Every step felt like walking underwater. She could hear them now. Laughter from the bedroom. Her bedroom. The one Derek had picked out the sheets for on their honeymoon in Positano. She reached the top of the stairs. The bedroom door was cracked open. The lamp inside was on. The tiramisu cake shook so hard in her hands that a rose slid off the top layer and fell wetly onto the runner beneath her feet. She did not look down at it. She pushed the door open. Derek was sitting up against the headboard, the sheet pulled halfway across his lap. Vanessa was curled against his chest, her blonde hair tangled, wearing nothing but Bella's silk robe. The one Bella had bought for her honeymoon. The one that still smelled like the lavender sachets her grandmother used to tuck into her drawers. There was an open bottle of Bella's favorite Barolo on the nightstand and 2 glasses, one with lipstick on the rim that wasn't Bella's shade. The room smelled like sex and expensive perfume and everything Bella had spent 5 years trying to build a life inside of. Nobody moved for a long moment. Bella stood in the doorway, holding the anniversary cake she had baked with her own hands. Her hair loose, her lipstick perfect, her plum silk dress catching the lamplight. She looked, in that moment, more beautiful than she had ever looked in her entire life. And her husband looked at her like she was a bill collector who had come to the wrong door. Derek did not scramble. He did not apologize. He did not even have the decency to look ashamed. He simply pulled the sheet higher on his lap, sighed like a man interrupted from a meeting, and said, "Well, this is not how I wanted this conversation to happen." Vanessa smirked. She actually smirked. She sat up slowly, letting the silk robe slip off one shoulder, and picked up her wine glass like this was a dinner party she had been invited to. "We were going to tell you this weekend," she said. "Really, Bella, it's better this way. Now you don't have to keep pretending." Bella could not speak. Her throat had closed. The tiramisu box slipped a full inch in her hands before she caught it. Derek looked at her, and there was no love in his face, and there had not been for a very long time, and she saw that now with a terrible clarity. He said, "Come on, Bella. Look at yourself. Look at her. Did you really think I was going to stay faithful to a woman who let herself go this badly? Vanessa actually takes care of herself. She goes to the gym. She watches what she eats. She looks like a partner's wife. You look like a woman who owns a bakery. There's a difference." He said it calmly, like he was explaining a stock chart, like he was telling her the weather. The cake fell out of Bella's hands. It hit the hardwood floor with a wet, ugly sound. The white box split open. Mascarpone cream and lady fingers, and the little piped roses she had spent 40 minutes on that afternoon splattered across the floorboards and onto the toes of her shoes. Vanessa laughed. She actually laughed. A short, sharp bark of a laugh. And she covered her mouth with her hand like a woman at a comedy show who did not want to be rude. Bella turned and ran. She did not remember getting down the stairs. She did not remember opening the front door. She did not remember starting her car. She only remembered the rain hitting the windshield and the sound of her own breathing, ragged and animal, filling the small dark space of the driver's seat. She drove until she did not know where she was going. She ended up in the empty parking lot behind her bakery. She turned off the engine, and then finally she broke. She cried the way a woman cries when something inside her has torn all the way through. She cried until her mascara was streaked down her jaw, and her nose was running, and she could not see. She reached for her phone with hands that shook so hard she dropped it twice. She needed her sister. Sophia would know what to say. Sophia had always known what to say. She opened her messages. She typed with trembling fingers. She typed everything. She typed about the rose petals and the Louboutins and the sheet across Derek's lap. She typed about the cake on the floor and Vanessa's laugh and the words Derek had said about her body in a voice as flat as a grocery list. She typed about the last 2 years and every cruel comment and every dinner she had left hungry because she was too embarrassed to eat in front of his colleagues. She typed until her thumbs ached. She typed a message 4 paragraphs long. And then, half blind with tears, she hit send. She dropped the phone into her lap and pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and sobbed. It took her nearly 2 minutes to look at the screen. When she did, her stomach turned to ice. The number at the top of the message ended in 7734. Sophia's number ended in 7743. She had transposed the last 2 digits. She had just sent the most humiliating, vulnerable, private moment of her entire life to a stranger. A complete stranger now knew about Derek, about Vanessa, about her body, about the cake, about everything. Bella almost threw the phone out the window. She fumbled with the screen and typed a frantic apology. "I am so sorry," she wrote. "This was meant for my sister. Wrong number. Please delete this. I am so embarrassed. Please just ignore everything I said." She hit send. She waited. She did not know what she was waiting for. An acknowledgement. A polite dismissal. Silence. The three dots appeared at the bottom of the screen. They pulsed for a long moment. They disappeared. They appeared again. Bella held her breath. Then the reply came through. 2 words. No punctuation. No greeting. No apology for intruding. Just 2 words that stopped her heart cold in her chest. Send address. Bella stared at the screen. She read the 2 words 3 times. She wiped her eyes and read them again to make sure she had not imagined them. She typed back with shaking fingers. I do not know you, she wrote. I am so sorry. Please forget I ever sent this. I promise I will not bother you again. The reply came back in under 10 seconds. You did not bother me, Isabella. You called me. That means tonight you are mine to protect. Send the address. Your husband will not survive what he did tonight. But you will. Bella's blood ran cold. She stared at her own name on the screen. She had never given him her name. She had not signed the first message. She had not introduced herself in the apology. And yet the stranger on the other end of the line knew exactly who she was. Bella's hands went numb around the phone. She looked around the empty parking lot as if the stranger might already be standing outside her car window. The rain fell harder against the roof. The dashboard clock read 11:07. She was alone behind a closed bakery in a city that suddenly felt very small, and a man she had never met had just used her full name in a message she never signed. She typed back with trembling fingers. How do you know my name? The 3 dots appeared immediately. I know everything about you now, the message read. Your bakery is called Sugar and Salt. You opened it 4 years ago on Hanover Street. Your grandmother's name was Rosa. Your husband's name is Derek Callahan, and he works at Sterling Cross Capital, and he has been stealing from his clients for 18 months. I know his mistress is named Vanessa Whitmore, and she has been sleeping with 2 other men behind his back. I know your sister Sophia lives in Providence, and I know you were trying to text her. And I know that in the last hour, a man broke something inside a woman who did not deserve any of it. Now send the address, Isabella. This is the last time I will ask. Bella dropped the phone into the passenger seat like it had burned her. She could not breathe. She looked out through the rain-streaked windshield at the empty street and tried to think. Every rational part of her brain screamed the same word. Run. Drive. Go to a police station. Call anyone. But underneath that voice was another, quieter one. And that voice said something she was not ready to admit yet. It said that in the last 5 years, no one had spoken to her the way this stranger just had. It said that no one had looked at her situation and offered to stand between her and it. It said that whoever was on the other end of that phone was terrifying and dangerous, and possibly the only person in the entire city of Boston who had heard her tonight. But Bella was not a stupid woman. She did not send the address. She picked up her phone with steadier hands and typed a different reply. Meet me somewhere public, she wrote. There is a diner on the corner of Cambridge Street. I will be there in 20 minutes. If you are who you say you are, you will find me. She did not wait for a reply. She started the car and drove. The diner was one of those all-night places with vinyl booths and buzzing fluorescent lights, and a menu that had not changed since 1982. A tired waitress named Marlene poured Bella a cup of black coffee without asking. Bella slid into a booth at the back with her hands wrapped around the mug for warmth. She did not drink it. She just sat there and watched the door. The bell above the diner door chimed at 11:47. He walked in. Bella had imagined a dozen versions of what a man who could pull a stranger's life history out of thin air might look like. None of them prepared her for the reality. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders that filled the doorframe as he stepped inside. He wore a bespoke charcoal suit that fit him the way a shadow fits a body, tailored so precisely it looked as if it had been stitched onto him. His dark hair was swept back from a face that could have been carved out of granite. His jaw was sharp. His mouth was firm. And his eyes, when they found her across the diner, were the color of black coffee left overnight, deep and unreadable, and lit from somewhere far behind them with a slow, patient intelligence. He did not scan the room. He walked directly to her booth, as if he had known exactly where she would be sitting. Two enormous men in dark coats waited outside on the sidewalk beside a matte black armored SUV that had no business being parked in front of a Cambridge street diner at midnight. He stopped at her table. He did not ask if he could sit. He simply lowered himself into the booth across from her with a fluid, unhurried grace that reminded her of something predatory in a nature documentary. Marlene, the waitress, glanced at him, went pale, and retreated to the counter without a word. "Isabella Moreno," he said. His voice was a low, gravelly baritone with the faintest trace of an accent she could not quite place. It was a voice that did not need to be raised to fill a room. "You did not send the address. That was smart. But you came to a public place where I could find you anyway. That was also smart. I like a woman who can think while she is bleeding." Bella swallowed. Her mouth had gone dry. "Who are you?" He watched her for a long moment before he answered. Then he said quietly, "My name is Dante Ricci." The name hit her like cold water. Every person who lived in Boston knew that name. It was the name whispered at the ends of news broadcasts that never quite finished their stories. It was the name that ran the North End, ran the docks, ran the shadow half of the city that the mayor pretended not to see. Dante Ricci was not a rumor. He was the reason the rumors existed. And he was sitting in a vinyl booth across from her, ordering a black coffee from a shaking waitress, as if this were the most ordinary night of his life. Bella did not run. She did not know why. Maybe because she had already lost everything that could be taken from her tonight. Maybe because the way he looked at her was so completely different from the way Derek had looked at her for the last 2 years that some starved animal inside her chest simply refused to move away from the warmth. Dante leaned forward. He rested his forearms on the table. "Show me the messages," he said quietly. "All of them. Every cruel word he ever put in writing to you. I want to read them myself before I decide what he deserves." Bella hesitated for exactly 2 seconds. Then she unlocked her phone and slid it across the table. He read in silence. His face did not change, but she watched a muscle work in his jaw. She watched his knuckles go white against the phone case when he reached a text from 6 months ago in which Derek had told her she had embarrassed him at a firm dinner by ordering pasta. She watched him scroll further back into the small daily cruelties, and she watched the black in his eyes slowly grow blacker. When he finally looked up at her, his voice was very soft. "Isabella, look at me." She did. "You are not what he told you. You are lush. You are beautiful. You are the kind of woman a real man would spend his life on his knees thanking God for. Your husband is not a real man, and after tonight he will not be much of anything at all." He slid the phone back to her. "Now, the address, Mia Bella, or I find it myself in the next 4 minutes. But I would prefer you gave it to me. It means something when a woman hands me the keys herself." Bella's hand shook only a little as she typed the address into his phone. "Before we go any further, if this story has your heart pounding already, do me one small favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story like this again, and drop your city in the comments below in a single line so I know where you are watching from tonight. Now let us get back to Bella and the man in the charcoal suit. The armored SUV rolled through the wet Boston streets like a black wave. Bella sat in the back seat beside Dante, her hands folded tight in her lap, her plum silk dress catching the light from the passing street lamps. Neither of them spoke for the first several minutes. The 2 men from the sidewalk were up front, one driving, one riding shotgun with a hand resting easy inside his coat. Nobody had introduced them. Nobody needed to. Bella watched the city slide past her window and felt the strange calm of a woman who has already fallen so far that the ground no longer scares her. She had run out of the brownstone 2 hours ago in tears. She was returning to it now in the back of a Mafia boss's armored SUV. She did not know what that made her. She only knew that when she looked down at her hands, they were no longer shaking. Dante spoke without turning his head. "Tell me what you want, Isabella." She looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean tonight, in that house, when we walk through the door. Tell me what you want to happen. I will not touch him unless you say the word. I will not raise my voice unless you ask me to. Tonight belongs to you. I am only the instrument. So tell me, what does the woman who baked a cake for her anniversary want from the man who let a stranger eat it in her bed? Bella was quiet for a long time. She watched a couple walk past a lit cafe, laughing under a shared umbrella, and she felt the ache of a life she was never going to have with Derek. Then she said very softly, I want him to understand. I want him to look at me and understand exactly what he threw away. I do not want him hurt. I just want him to know. Dante nodded once. Then that is what will happen. The SUV pulled up to the brownstone at 12:41 in the morning. Every window on the second floor was lit. Derek's Porsche was in the driveway. Vanessa's Range Rover was behind it, parked crooked, as if she had been in too much of a hurry to line up the wheels. They were still there. They had not even had the shame to leave. Dante removed his charcoal suit jacket and draped it gently over Bella's shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body and smelled of cedarwood, a trace of tobacco, and something darker underneath that she could not name. He took her hand. His palm was calloused. His grip was firm. You will walk through that door with your head high, he said quietly. You will look him in the eye. You will let him see you clearly for the first time in his miserable life. And when you have said what you came to say, you will walk out again. You will not look back. You will not owe him a single word more. Do you understand? Bella nodded. They climbed the steps together. Dante's two men flanked the doorway behind them. Dante did not knock. He simply turned the handle. The door was unlocked. He pushed it open and let Bella step through first. The house was warm and smelled like her burrow. Laughter drifted from the living room. Bella walked toward it with Dante one step behind her. She stopped in the archway. Derek and Vanessa were on her couch. Vanessa was still wearing Bella's silk robe. There was a half-empty wine bottle on the coffee table and two glasses. A record was playing softly. They were laughing about something. Vanessa saw Bella first. Her laugh died in her throat. Derek looked up. His face went through three expressions in the space of 2 seconds. Confusion, annoyance, and then, as his eyes slid past Bella and landed on the tall man in the black shirt standing at her shoulder, pure, blood-draining terror. Derek Callahan worked in Boston finance. Derek Callahan read the Metro section. Derek Callahan had sat through more than one hushed lunch meeting in which older colleagues had used the name Ricci in the same sentence, as the words do not ever cross. Oh God, Derek whispered. He stood up so fast he knocked his wine glass over. Red spilled across Bella's cream rug. He did not notice. Oh God. Bella. Bella, what did you do? Who is that? Bella. Vanessa, oblivious, snapped. Isabella, seriously. You brought a friend to fight your battle for you. That is honestly so pathetic even for. Sit down, Dante said quietly. Both of you. Now. They sat. Instantly, Vanessa's face finally caught up to the temperature in the room. Her mouth closed. Her hands went to the collar of Bella's stolen robe, as if she had suddenly remembered she was wearing it. Dante did not move for a long moment. He simply stood beside Bella and let the silence do its work. Then he walked, slow and unhurried, into the living room. He ran one finger along the mantel. He looked at the wedding photograph in the silver frame Bella's mother had given them. He picked up the anniversary card Bella had written that morning and left on the counter. He opened it. He read it aloud in his low, gravelly voice. To the man who taught me what love looks like. 5 years down. A lifetime to go. All my love. Bella. He set the card down gently. He turned. He looked at Derek. Derek Callahan. Dante said. Junior Vice President at Sterling Cross Capital. $340,000 in personal gambling debt to a very impatient man in Atlantic City. $2.1 million moved through client accounts in the last 18 months without proper authorization. A girlfriend on the side who, my people tell me, has been sleeping with your managing director for the last 8 months. Did you know that, Derek? Vanessa has been double-dipping. You are not even her first choice. You are her backup plan. Vanessa made a small, strangled sound. Derek turned and stared at her. Her face was scarlet. But that, Dante continued, is not why I am here. I am here because tonight, on your anniversary, Your wife walked in with a cake she baked with her own hands, and you told her that she had let herself go. You said this to a woman who built a business from nothing while you gambled away yours. You said this to a woman who wore your ring for 5 years. You said this to my Isabella. The word "my" landed in the room like a dropped stone. Derek was crying now. Actually crying, ugly tears streaming down his face. Mr. Ricci, please, please. I did not know. I did not know who she was to you. I did not. She was your wife, Dante said softly. That should have been enough. He walked over. He stopped in front of Derek and looked down at him the way a man looks at something on the sole of his shoe. By 8 in the morning, a package will arrive at your firm containing every gambling record and every unauthorized transfer. By noon, you will be terminated for cause. By Friday, the SEC will have opened a formal investigation. Your assets will be frozen by Monday. And Vanessa. He turned his black eyes on her, and she flinched hard enough to spill her wine. The managing director's wife happens to be a personal friend of mine. She will be receiving her own package with her morning coffee. Vanessa began to sob. Derek fell to his knees on the wine-stained rug. Bella, baby, please, tell him I am sorry. I did not mean any of it. You are beautiful. You were always beautiful. I was just scared. Please, please. Bella looked down at the man she had married. She looked at him for a long moment, and she felt, at last, absolutely nothing. No, she said. She turned. She walked back to Dante. He offered her his arm. She took it, and together they walked out of the brownstone, leaving Derek Callahan sobbing on his knees in a puddle of red wine, and Vanessa Whitmore clutching a stolen robe that no longer belonged to a life she was ever going to have again. The next 72 hours belonged to Dante Ricci, and he spent them dismantling Derek Callahan's life with the quiet precision of a man taking apart a watch. By 7 in the morning on Tuesday, Derek's keycard was declined at the front desk of Sterling Cross Capital. 2 men in FBI windbreakers were already waiting in the marble lobby with a warrant thick enough to prop open a door. His firm phone was deactivated before he made it to the elevator. His Porsche was repossessed from the brownstone driveway before noon. By 3 in the afternoon, every checking account, savings account, and offshore holding in Derek Callahan's name had been frozen. His mother called him crying. His father did not call at all. The managing director's wife filed for divorce by Wednesday morning, and the managing director himself resigned by Wednesday afternoon, and Vanessa Whitmore's carefully manicured Instagram, all 87,000 followers of it, collapsed under a tidal wave of screenshots that no one could quite explain how the internet had gotten hold of. By Thursday, she had bought a one-way ticket to Lisbon. By Friday, she was gone. Bella found out about most of it from the news. She sat cross-legged on her velvet sofa in her Beacon Hill apartment, a mug of chamomile tea steaming in her hands, watching the churn scroll across the bottom of a local evening broadcast. Sterling Cross VP indicted in massive wire fraud probe. She turned the television off. She set her tea down. She looked at her own reflection in the dark screen and did not recognize the woman looking back. That woman was not crying. That woman was sitting up straight. That woman was wearing her berry red lipstick at 6 in the evening for no one but herself. On Wednesday afternoon, a matte black clothing box arrived at the bakery, tied with a heavy silk ribbon. There was no delivery driver. Bella carried it into the back and untied the ribbon with careful fingers. Inside, wrapped in layers of dark tissue paper, was a dress. Not a dress meant to hide her. A dress meant to celebrate her. Deep burgundy velvet, cut to hug every full and generous curve of her size 18 body, with a plunging sweetheart neckline and a corseted waist. Custom made. A Christian Siriano original, cut to her exact measurements from photographs she did not remember anyone taking. Tucked into the neckline was a cream cardstock envelope. The handwriting inside was sharp, elegant, uncompromising. A queen does not grieve in the same clothes she wore to war. Dinner. Friday. 8 o'clock. My driver will collect you. D. Bella pressed the card against her chest and closed her eyes, and for the first time in 5 years, cried tears that did not come from a wound. Friday afternoon brought one last visitor to sugar and salt. The back door bell rang at 4. Bella opened it, wiping flour from her hands, and there stood Derek Callahan, unshaven, wearing the same wrinkled suit he had been wearing on Monday night, his eyes hollow, his hands trembling around a bouquet of grocery store roses that had already begun to wilt. "Bella," he whispered, "baby, please. I have lost everything. My job, my family. Vanessa is gone. My parents will not take my calls. I have nowhere to go. Please. You have to call him off. You have to tell him I am sorry. We can start over. I will go to counseling. I will do anything. Anything. I was wrong about everything. You are beautiful. You were always beautiful. I was so scared of how much I loved you that I tried to shrink you down to something I could hold. Please, Bella, please." Bella looked at him. She saw him clearly, and she saw that he was not, and had never been, a man who loved her. He was a man who had owned her and confused ownership for love. She saw that the roses in his hand were the same kind Vanessa had left in petals on her floor. She saw that even in his ruin, he had not thought to bake her a single thing with his own hands. "Derek," she said gently, "you did not call me too much because I was too much. You called me too much because you were too small. I am done shrinking to fit inside a man who could not hold me." She closed the door. Behind him, at the mouth of the alley, a matte black SUV was idling quietly against the curb. The back window rolled down exactly 1 inch, just enough for Bella to see a pair of dark eyes watching. He had been there the whole time, making sure. She did not wave. She did not need to. She simply turned the deadbolt and walked back to her ovens and finished a batch of cannoli shells with steadier hands than she had used all week. At 8 o'clock that night, she stepped out of her brownstone in the burgundy velvet Sereno gown. Her dark curls were swept into a Hollywood wave. Her lips were painted a deep, dangerous wine red. The Maybach was waiting at the curb. So was Dante, standing beside the open door in a black tuxedo with a burgundy silk pocket square that matched her dress exactly, as if the whole of Boston had been color-corrected to the two of them. For a long moment, the most feared man on the East Coast simply looked at her. His black eyes softened into something she had never seen on any man's face before, not once in 29 years of living. "Reverence. Mia Bella," he murmured, taking her hand and pressing a slow, warm kiss to her knuckles. "You are a masterpiece. He never deserved to look at you." Dinner was on a private rooftop closed to the public. Just the two of them. Candlelight. A skyline of Boston glittering below like a spilled jewelry box. He ordered for her without asking the richest and most decadent things on the menu, and he watched her eat with a dark, satisfied approval that had nothing in it but pleasure at watching her be full. There was no scrutiny in his gaze. There were no comments about portions. There was only a man watching a woman finally take up the space she had always deserved. Between courses, he set down his wine glass and looked at her seriously. "Isabella, when you texted a wrong number on Monday night, I did not believe in coincidences. I still do not. I have watched over the North End for 11 years. In 11 years, I have never let anyone see the man beneath the suit. And then a woman I had never met sent me a message meant for her sister. I read the words of a man treating her like she was less than the miracle she is. And something in me that I thought had died a long time ago opened its eyes." He reached across the table and took her hand. "I am not a good man, Mia Bella. I will not pretend to be. But I know what a treasure looks like when I am holding one. And no man in this city, no man on this earth, will ever speak to you the way he did again. Not while I am breathing." Bella's eyes filled. Different tears than Monday's. These ones did not hurt. "Dante, I do not know your world. You do not have to live in it," he said quietly. "You only have to let me stand between you and it. Let me be the wall. You keep being the light. Say yes, and no one will ever make you feel small again. Say no, and I will still make sure you are safe for the rest of your life, but you will not see me again. Your choice. Always your choice." She stood. She walked around the table. She took his face in her hands. She kissed him. It tasted like burgundy wine and absolute power and a woman who was done apologizing for the space she took up in the world. When she pulled back, she pressed her forehead to his and whispered against his mouth, You said send address. So here it is, Dante. My address is wherever you are. Dante smiled, a real smile, one his enemies had never seen and never would, and pulled her gently into his lap. Somewhere across the city, Derek Callahan was crying himself to sleep in a motel room he could barely afford. Somewhere over the Atlantic, Vanessa Whitmore was staring out a plane window at a country that no longer wanted her. And on a rooftop above the Boston skyline, the plus-size bakery owner who had been told for 2 years that she was too much had finally found a man who thought she was exactly enough. The queen of the Ricci Empire had arrived, and she had walked in on the arm of a wrong number that turned out to be the only right one she had ever dialed. If Bella's story gave you chills tonight, if you cheered when Derek hit his knees, if you fell just a little bit in love with Dante Ricci along the way, do 3 things for me before you go. Smash that like button so more women get to hear this story. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new Mafia romance drop. And drop your city in the comments below in one single line, so I know exactly where in the world you are tuning in from tonight. I read every single one. Sweet dreams, my queens. I will see you in the very next story.